Excellent. Wonderful. So I think you can ignore my comments down below because we've already gone those 5 minutes and Victoria has already shared with you a bit about the One Planet City Challenge. But I just wanted to kick off with a video. And I wonder, Anthony, are you able to share the video from your side with the volume? Is that possible?
I can. I might just have to find it first, unless Victoria has it ready.
Let me share you the link in the chat really quick, and I will stop my share. Meanwhile, sorry, friends, this is not at all how we had intended to do this webinar, but sometimes technology gets in the way. So let me just share that to you, Anthony, really quick. In the meantime, Victoria, have you asked everyone to add into the chat maybe where they're calling in from?
No, that's a great way to start.
Yeah. Maybe just say hello in the chat for us and tell us.
Solutions. What are they and how?
Excellent. Thank you, Joseph. Great way to start. Hello, Sabina. Wonderful.
I can, if you put the link in the chat to me, then I can try to share my screen.
Excellent. I will do that as well. There you go.
Urban nature-based solutions.
Okay, Anthony is sharing sound, and can we see also the
Urban nature-based solutions.
Okay.
Can you see my screen on YouTube?
We can see your screen, but yeah, I'm just wondering if the sound is also being shared.
Urban nature-based solutions.
Perfect.
What are they, and how can they help us tackle some of humanity's biggest challenges? Today, just over half the world's population live in cities. At the same time, urban areas account for 70% of global CO2 emissions and 75% of the world's natural resource consumption. Cities and the way we live in them contribute significantly to climate change and the global loss of biodiversity. But it doesn't have to be that way. When planned well, cities can instead reduce humanity's environmental impact as they can meet human needs more efficiently. As population, consumption, and solution hubs, cities are where change needs to happen. And it is here that the growing number of urban nature-based solutions have an important role to play. Urban nature-based solutions are exactly what they sound like. Different ways of using and including nature to heal and improve our cities. They aim to protect and restore natural ecosystems, or to create urban ecological corridors that benefit both wildlife and a city's inhabitants. One great example is found in central Seoul. Here, the construction of a city highway had buried a once vibrant river under asphalt and concrete, but the highway was removed and the river was restored to its former glory. This led to an increase in biodiversity, greater protection against natural disasters, and many other advantages for both the environment and the people of Seoul. Across the globe in Medellin, Colombia, the Green Corridors Project has created 36 green corridors between natural areas in and outside the city. These corridors encourage the movement of species, but also have a profound impact on the city itself. Exactly what nature-based solutions may look like depends on the prerequisites and challenges of each city. Around the world, we find them built into buildings and entire neighborhoods, in the planning of vegetation, agricultural, and forest areas, in the restoration and preserving of rivers, and by the sea to create living shorelines. Cities all over the world of all shapes and sizes are now making nature part of the solution. They have realized that the urban nature-based solutions can address multiple challenges, including climate change, biodiversity loss, natural disaster prevention like extreme weather, and food and water shortages. Join us later on when we dive into the different examples of urban nature-based solutions and how they can make our cities even better.
Thank you so much, Victoria and Anthony, for the tech support there. And we'll go ahead and I'll get back to the presentation. So I'll just get a quick confirmation you can see my screen again. And then I will ask maybe Anthony and or Victoria to share a few links along the way as we go.
Apart from creating green
That
corridors,
is playing
also
now,
use
and
buildings,
we can only hear the
constructions,
sound
and
now.
neighborhoods to improve citizens' life and preserve natural
Not
ecosystems.
playing on my system.
Ekostaden on
Just a second.
Gustenborg is a residential area in Malmö, Sweden.
The Augustenborg area in Malmö was planned and built around 1950.
Okay, are we good now? I think it stopped on one of your sides. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not here. All right, well, this is reality where we're living now. So let me get back to the presentation and get going a little bit quicker now that we've had a few tech hiccups along the way. Yeah, we will share all the links in the chat as we go forward. And just to reiterate a few things that Victoria said, you know, this is really for us an exciting opportunity to share with you some of the work we're doing. And it's very much connected to the One Planet City Challenge. We're so happy to have you all there. This was the biggest year for city engagement in the One Planet City Challenge. It was also a time to celebrate 10 years of working together, where we've had more than 275 cities join us in 2021, more than 700 cities join us overall. And you know, a lot of the work we're really doing, and also right now, is to support cities towards 1.5 degree alignment, and to really help cities pave the way to meet and exceed the goals of the Paris Agreement. But of course, as much as we talk about the Paris Agreement and the importance of getting strong and ambitious climate action, we cannot forget the equally important biodiversity crisis. Every 2 years, WWF sets out a report, the Living Planet Report, to assess where we are in terms of planetary challenges and in particular biodiversity loss. And we found in the latest Living Planet Report that was launched in 2020, that the population size of mammals, birds, fish, amphibians, and reptiles has seen an alarming drop of 68%, almost 70% of the population sizes of these animals since 1970. Now, this is global data. So the data is sometimes worse or better in different parts of the world, but this needs to be a wake-up call that in such a short period of time, in many of our lifetimes, we've seen a drastic decrease in our biodiversity. So how does this connect to cities? I think many of you have seen this before, and I just want to focus on two numbers here. Cities are hugely important when we talk about climate action. They are responsible for 70% of carbon emissions, but equally, they are responsible for 75% of natural resource consumption. So now we're going to add an extra challenge here for you today, and I would like you all to get out your phones. And I'm going to stop sharing this because I'd like to share instead another screen with you. So let me go ahead and make my technical challenges even more cumbersome here. Let's see. So are you able to click on this link? You should be able to open your phone and just take a photo of this, and it should take you to slido.com. If you are not able to do that, then please just type in the website, and there is the code. Now I'll give it just maybe 30 seconds more to see if you guys are all able to log in here. And then we have just 3 questions in order to get to know each other here, and to also to see a little bit more of your cities. So let me go ahead and see if I can move this now. Exit. I want to go ahead and start this now. Okay. Okay, just a second here. I had all of these opened and ready to go, but when we had the tech challenges, I had to turn everything off. So I'm not sure if this is going to work as effective as it should be. Just a second here. Let's log in. I'm going to try one quick second, and otherwise we'll just skip this because it's been a crazy morning. Let's see. All right, let's see. Now I think I can go ahead and do this. Yes. Okay, so you should be able to, let me go ahead and share you my screen one more time. Okay, so the first question is, where are you calling in from? We've already done that a bit in the chat, but I think it's fun to see. Add your city, add your country, let us know where you're calling in. So we see a lot of folks from Sweden, from the Philippines, from Cambodia, Indonesia. It's a real global group here. Yes, excellent. Someone calling in from Hello, that sounds like a fun city. I would love to visit you there. Turkey, great. Yeah, so it's always fun for us to kind of see the cities that are joining us in order to, and obviously you as individuals too, in order to really make sure that what we're talking about is relevant to where you're living. Okay. So now from there, I think we will go to the next question if everyone is ready. Yes, and this is about understanding how is the accessibility to urban nature and green space in your city. And I hope you can all still see. So you can take up to 2 of these. So you don't have to choose just one, you can select 2. Okay, so a lot of people saying seemingly here that my city has urban nature and it's well integrated. That's great to see. My city has access to nature, but only in certain districts. Unfortunately, that is a very common reality in many cities around the world. My city has little urban nature. The good thing is that we're not seeing too many that are answering that one, but of course that is a real reality in many cities that we're working with too. Great. Okay, so it looks like most of you are living in places where my city has urban nature, but needs more, and especially regarding the climate resilient local flora and fauna. And this is something that it's good that you acknowledge this, and this is certainly something that we from WWF also want to see. So I think we'll go to the last question here. And I will happily share this data with you afterwards. So this is a little bit of an open question for you, so you can answer how you think. What would you like to see your city invest in a bit more in terms of urban nature-based solutions? Green walks, very good. Green corridors, we like that, definitely. Ecological corridors, I feel like maybe there's some people from WWF answering this as well. City parks. Growing food, very important too, connecting our landscapes. Green buildings, forests, watershed management. Community gardens. A lot of interest in food. So I think this is very good for us to know, because those of you who have attended other webinars and or are aware with what WWF is doing, we're working both on urban nature-based solutions as well as on urban food systems. And it seems from what you're answering that it's good to have a link between. All right, so I'm happy to see that there's some interaction here, and especially even more happy because it's the first time I've used this platform, and with all the tech challenges we've had this morning, it's great to see that you guys are so excited and integrated. But for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and stop this, but I will happily share the results with you all. I think afterwards, I think Victoria's plugged in to get the results to you. But I will go back to the presentation. And let's see, so here we are. So now I'm just going to go forward a little. And okay, so can I ask those of you who are more familiar with this topic, what is a nature-based solution? Any thoughts? Feel free to add it to the chat. I know you've given examples of what they are, so you probably have a pretty good grasp on it, and our video maybe provided a few hints of what we're looking for as well. Well, in the meantime, while we just think on what is a nature-based solution, because there's a lot of terminology that is being shared out there, I wanted to, excellent, I'm just going to see the green applications, cooling for nature, for example. Yes, some great ideas here. But we're going to start with a little bit of a love all these answers. I'm going to give you kind of the nerdy, a formal definition of what has been accepted as a nature-based solution. And this is coming from the IUCN. So this is actions to protect, sustainably manage, and restore natural or modified ecosystems that address societal challenges effectively and adaptively, simultaneously providing human well-being and biodiversity benefits. So what you see here is there's a link between societal challenges and how nature can start to address them. And this is really about addressing both human and biodiversity. For WWF, we pretty much align with the IUCN definition, but we've also provided a little bit of our own resources here too. And this is in terms of nature-based solutions should be designed to address clear societal challenges. So again, a big focus on how this is addressing societal challenges, including food security, climate change, water security, human health, disaster risks, natural and economic development, while protecting nature through monitoring of robust indicators. So really, how do we measure and ensure that we're really moving in the right direction? But another part of WWF's definition that is very important for us is with and for beneficiaries. So with and for communities, if you will. These solutions should not be standalone. They should be developed that people understand and benefit from them, and also are maybe even a part of creating these solutions. So this next question I wanted to share, and I've also point out that we have a new policy guidance on urban nature if you're interested to see what we see as a key definition and what we would like to see for both cities, countries, and even international institutions. So I invite you to read our 2-page policy paper. But here is just a few examples of, what are nature-based solutions in cities and what are the benefits in particular. And again, I'm happy if you want to add to the chat anything that you might think that could be some of the benefits here. Any thoughts? And I love everything that you're writing in here. Since we're a little low on time, I'm not going to be as integrated here as I'd like to, but it's really useful stuff. Well, let me just give you a few examples of what we think are key benefits from nature-based solutions in terms of how they support our cities. So nature-based solutions can support sustainable development, climate targets, and urban biodiversity protection. In particular, this is about having cities that have more urban resilience and livability. And why is livability so important? It's really about, health and well-being. It's about reducing extreme weather impacts. We've seen so many of these on the news. And while there are many different reasons for why these issues are happening, climate change most certainly, we also know that if we create more resilient communities and we have more robust natural solutions, this is one way to buffer some of these challenges. Nature is a great way to mitigate a lot of the urban heat. We see cities are warming at unprecedented rates, and it's not just about mechanical cooling, but also natural cooling solutions. They're also important to filter air and water and recharge our aquifers, because our cities are using so much water, and that comes from somewhere, and we need to make sure that it is returned as well. Nature-based solutions also provide multiple job opportunities, including for both low skill and high skill jobs. And this is very important because we can't just focus on, high skill and high ambition jobs. We need jobs for all sectors of society, and we need to make sure that these provide opportunities for a diverse part of our communities. And what's exciting about nature-based solutions, and also for those of you who are calling in, as we saw, you're representing so many different parts of the world, that this is really about solutions that are applicable in big cities and small towns, in different socioeconomic contexts, in different climate zones, in agricultural, forestry, and coastal zones. And certainly, as our geography has demonstrated in those who are in the call, it's not going to always be the same natural or nature-based solutions. It needs to be locally applicable based on local and endemic species that have a certain resilience for coming challenges. So just to give you a little bit of a visual, I found this and I thought it was quite useful to look at some of the benefits that nature provides to our cities. And I think most of you are probably aware of this, but sometimes it's something that we often take for granted. But plants, they reduce the smog and the pollutions in our city, and ground level ozone. Biomass helps to bind the CO2 that is so critical to the climate crisis. It can help strengthen our ecosystems, and obviously the engagement that we have in them, active and healthy citizens. It can manage nutrients as well as temperatures, reduce noise. Noise is a huge challenge that we don't take enough time to think about. Also, investing in nature is very good for property values. So, what we're talking about this, it can't just have an environmental message. It has to have a message that can reach diverse audiences, including real estate developers, architects, etc. And also, these are a few of the benefits, and I invite you to look at some of these resources as you see available. And this is a topic that is growing in increasingly importance around the world. I mean, there's been a lot of people here in this call today, but certainly this is a hot topic that we see from many different organizations in many different cities. And I wanted to point you to the recently launched Biodiverse Cities by 2030 report, Transforming Cities' Relationships with Nature. And I see we will definitely share all the materials. Most of them are linked in the presentation itself, but otherwise happy to share with you. This report isn't online. I think it might be that I sent you the link, Anthony, if you could pop it in the chat, and if not, we will send it afterwards. Perfect, brilliant. So this is a report from the World Economic Forum and the Government of Colombia, and a group of about 30 different experts from around the world that had consulted over a year on what is biodiversity in cities. And I'm happy to say that WWF is one of the organizations that was a part of this report. And here are some of the crucial findings. Now, there's a lot of information on here, so I'm going to really highlight that is in green. We are currently living in an urban area, both in terms of investment and population growth. But what is extremely critical here is that 44% of GDP in cities is estimated to be at risk of disruption from nature loss. So if we don't get the nature loss crisis right, we will detrimentally impact our gross domestic product. And also urban expansion, as cities are growing, many of the cities that are growing right now are happening in world biodiversity hotspots. And so we need to act now to really rebalance our relationship with nature. So what this Biodiverse Cities report is trying to do is lay out a vision for how cities act as living systems, including their environment, economic, and social functions, and these can really coexist. And here are some of the key numbers that you need to take home to your governments. Investing in nature has great economic and social value. For example, spending $583 billion US dollars. Now that's a huge number. This is a global number, of course, but investing in urban nature for infrastructure can create up to 59 million jobs by 2030 including 21 million livelihood enhancing jobs. So jobs that would be better than what people have today. This is why it's important to invest in nature, because we get a return on it as well. And not only do we have jobs that are being created by investing in nature, but investing in nature-based solutions for infrastructure is actually 50% cheaper than concrete and other gray infrastructure options, and provides 28% additional value. Now, that short video that we showed at the beginning is part of a series that we have produced, and we interview several different city leaders, and they demonstrate in their own cities the additional values in cities like Singapore, Seoul, Malmö, etc. So, what this report is really trying to take home is that investing in nature is investing in your city and investing in your economy and investing in your community. Now, this is, I've been talking a lot about biodiversity, but we also, of course, are connected here because of our work on climate change together. You joined the One Planet City Challenge because you have a strong climate ambition and you want your city to help align to the Paris Agreement goal and the 1.5 degrees Celsius target. And this is extremely important. And this is a picture that came out a few years ago from WWF. And I will tell you that it's being currently updated to align with the new IPCC report that will launch at the end of the month, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. But just to see, the difference between 1.5 degree and 2 degrees matters in terms of who is going to be experiencing extreme weather, in terms of species loss, in terms of sea level rise and the populations exposed to extreme heat. And this is even more critical in cities. For example, in a city like Beijing in China, has already warmed by 1.7 degrees Celsius. And under a business as usual scenario, if we don't get climate change fixed and solved immediately, that city could warm up by 6.1 degrees. So cities are warming at extreme rates. And this is, of course, because of all of the different technology and buildings and surface areas that are concreted in our cities. But we really need to address this. And one of the ways that we see to do so, WWF was part of a collaboration called the Cool Coalition, which not only does it have a very cool name, it's a combination of cities and national governments and NGOs and think tanks looking at how we can really address the cooling problem, because the demand for cooling and electronic cooling is growing at unprecedented rates. But of course, mechanical cooling, air conditioners, for example, they might cool you inside your building, but they also contribute to the problem of urban heat island. So we see that cities are heating at 2 times the global average. This report it's very extensive. It's online. Anthony just added the link to the chat if you're interested. It's so far only in English, but I think they might be translating it. It has a lot of different cooling solutions, but one area that I want to talk about is, as Sabina mentioned earlier in the chat, the importance of nature-based solutions for cooling. And we also did a webinar from the GPSC series. I did not add that link, but if you're interested, you can, it's part of that report, and it's part of the World Bank series on bringing nature to cities, and specifically looking at how street trees, green roofs, parks, and other green infrastructure planning can actually be a smart solution for cooling, as opposed to just investing in mechanical solutions. So I'm just going to check the time here. All right, with a few technical challenges, but we're doing okay. I wanted to share with you this, I don't know, beautiful or horrible image that we've all become way too familiar with. And that is, of course, the image of the coronavirus, or COVID-19. This has had so many challenges, in particular in the cities that we're living in. I see a hand raised. I think, is that possible to take, or do you want to add your comment to the chat, or? Okay, I'll take your comment in the chat. I'm not sure technically how we can unmute.
I can unmute, but I see the hand went down again, so.
Okay. Yeah, from now, maybe it's best, it's just to add your comment to the chat, and we'll try to keep it active here. Since we're running a little bit behind from my tech side, but let's see how we do. I think the point here, though, is just really, we have been in a reality that has been extremely challenging in the last 2 years, but where there is a challenge, there's also an opportunity. And I think this is really crucial when we start to think about urban nature-based solutions and what can they add to our cities. I've always loved this image, which is from the Swedish Transport Association, and kind of depicts how crazy we have been building our cities for the last 100-some years. Are we creating cities and streets for people, or cities and streets for cars? In so many places, between 40 and 60% of public space is sometimes dedicated to cars in terms of roads, parking lots, highways, and not enough spaces for green spaces and for people. So perhaps what we are seeing right now, especially as people have, reclaimed the streets in order to be outside and integrated, but in a socially distanced manner, how can we see that we can really create cities that are for people and nature and not only for cars? Cities that enable all people to thrive and flourish while respecting the ecological limits of our one and only planet. So in essence, cities that are integrated and addressing the climate and biodiversity crisis, but also places that are better for the people that are living there. One of the things that we have wanted to do within WWF is push and promote what we are calling socio-ecological corridors. So connecting and integrating cities to their natural landscapes, and in order to both, this has a value in terms of having access to green space, making sure that all parts of our community have access to green spaces for healthy, active, and equitable communities. Doing so addresses multiple SDGs, including the ones listed here below on good health, reducing inequality, sustainable cities, climate action, and life on land or biodiversity. But it's also just smart planning. So this is a concept that we are currently developing, and as we finalize it, we will definitely share with you more if you're interested. And we are certainly not the only ones working on this kind of concept of making sure that cities are integrated in the natural landscapes. I also wanted to share with you, I shared with you an image of a concrete street and where humans are kind of teetering on the sidewalks, and most of the spaces are dedicated to cars, but it has not always been that way, and it does not have to be that way. And important to note that historically, throughout human history, cities have always been connected to key nature spots. And why is this? Because when humans started to settle thousands of years ago, we started settling in places that had good access to fresh water, good access to food, whether it be fish or berries, or fertile soils were so important to how we lived in our communities. So we have always been very closely integrated to the important natural hotspots. And this is still the case. You saw it in the biodiversity report, where many of the cities that are growing are in those biodiversity hotspots. And this is a report that came out from our partners at the Nature Conservancy a few years back, and demonstrates by 2030, 40% of protected areas will be close to within 50 kilometers of cities and urban areas. So almost half of protected areas will be close to cities. So we really need to get planning right. And we need to connect nature in and near cities, but also understand the relationship to nature areas further away. And this has many benefits, as we have already described, in terms of nature-based cooling, air quality, health, etc. This is from that same report. I'm not going to go into detail here, but it's a great report to check out. And that is called the Urban Century, Nature in the Urban Century, for those of you who are interested, from our friends at the Nature Conservancy. And now, just knowing that we're kind of getting close on time here, I want to share with you a little bit of what we have been up to from WWF side. In particular, noting our new website that launched a few months ago, panda.org/urban nature. And there you can get some of the information that we have shared here already today in terms of our policy paper, those videos that the one that we shared in the beginning, and some others. We also produced for World Cities Day last year, which was on the 31st of October, a piece on cities for people and nature. And I in particular want to point to this publication on the left side here, Urban Nature-Based Solutions. This is available in English, Spanish, and French. And if you want it in your languages, well, then you're going to have to talk to your colleagues at WWF and maybe they can help with translating to your particular language. But I want to share with you a few case studies. What we like about this publication is that it is not super deep and academic. There's a lot of great publications out there that do that. So if you want a more extensive review, we're happy to share with you many of the papers that we consulted to put this together. But we want this to really look sharp and quick at some of the key city examples, as well as some of the co-benefits of investing in nature. So I have here 4 examples that I want to share with you. The first is Malmö, Sweden, the south of Sweden, an area called Gothenburg, which 25 years ago, time flies fast, in the mid-1990s was an area that was suffering from urban flooding. And because of that, problems with abandonment and even crime. And the city at the time decided, we need to rethink what this neighborhood is, from a neighborhood of challenges to a neighborhood of opportunity, test beds, and trying new solutions. So soon in the 1990s and into the early 2000s, they started to invest in nature. So you can see on this image here, the picture of a green roof. Combined with that, there are multiple open stormwater management channels that help filter the rainwater to more natural ponds, including that have been hugely important for biodiversity, small ponds that have now fish and amphibians and children that are curiously learning about urban nature. So a key aspect of this project was really about preserving the integrity and the ecological status of that environment, understanding, what are the right nature-based solutions for this environment, and how can we restore degraded ecosystems in the middle of a city. Now, it's both about the natural system, but it's also about the human systems. And if you want these solutions to be effective, and you'll see also in the examples that follow, it's really about bringing everyone on board. And I think that is one of the reasons why this has become one of the most widely known case studies, is because local stakeholders, soon after they had the very initial idea, brought in the residents and asked them what they wanted in the project. So residents were highly engaged in this project for, I think, more than 10 years. And brought in many of the solutions and some of the ideas that were later implemented. It was not only about green space, I should tell you. There was some investment in solar panels, and there was some investment in other community solutions like a community car sharing system. But really making sure that people feel included in the projects that are being developed in their neighborhoods. This was also successful because of bringing in multiple different financial solutions. I'm not going to say that investing in nature is cheap. It is cheaper, as we saw in the Biodiverse Cities report, cheaper than investing in concrete and gray solutions, gray infrastructure solutions, but it still costs money. So we need to make sure that there are multiple investors that want to and believe in a project. But what was key here was to learn really to communicate and include the community and empower them to be a part of this. So for example, some of the community got really excited about working on local food composting and recycling. And it became one of the neighborhoods in Malmö and in many ways in Sweden that was one of the first to really pilot new recycling systems. And in doing so, this project saw a 50% increase in biodiversity, a 20% reduction in carbon emissions, and 30% less people unemployed. So an increase in employment. So there's a lot that can be done here in your cities as well. I want to share with you a city now. We're going to South America, in Medellin, Colombia, a city that has had also, like Malmö, has had challenges, both in terms of unemployment, but also in terms of equality issues, and also even some violence, and especially in the 1990s. This was a city that had a lot of challenges, but has created a vision in order to renew the city and do so with people and with nature. So one of the most important aspects here was to, again, as we talk about WWF, this idea of socio-ecological corridors, to connect the city to its surrounding natural environment, and see that that is not just about a connection to nature, but also a connection for people. So they invested significantly in restoring these green belts and blue corridors, and encouraging species movement. restoring degraded ecosystems in order to create a greener Medellin for you. And I mean, the idea of for you was important so that all the citizens felt ownership. They were involved in trainings to understand why this was important and how they could involve. They targeted busier parts of the city and also using local legislation and really, seeing that this can be profitable and valuable for the community. Doing so, as you can see, these three little next to the picture here, they created 36 green corridors. The temperature reduced 2 degrees and 75 people were hired in the process. Singapore, so we'll go back to Asia now, has long been suggested as one of the strongest examples of really investing in urban nature. And I wanted to point out in particular the conversion of a concrete storm drain to become a 3-kilometer meandering river and lush vegetation park. So by removing a storm drain and instead seeing how could this area become an asset for the city, it's really about demonstrating that there are multiple co-benefits to investing in nature instead of concrete solutions. This was done, a huge important part about this was about collaboration. The local parks department, the National Water Agency, the local community, understanding the floodplain and also the flood risks and how nature can help mitigate this. And as you can see, investing in nature saw that this was building conventional gray and was much cheaper than the more conventional infrastructure and has had a huge impact on quality of life. So just to share with you, because of this investment, they were able to calculate in this new park, 100+ species of birds are now present. 3 kilometers of green space was added to this city-state, and which is visited by some 4 million visitors a year. For the sake of time, I saw there was a hand raised, and I would just highlight what Victoria said to please put your question in the chat. And we can definitely go over a few minutes if we need to because of the tech challenges, but I do imagine some people will have to leave. I'm almost done here. I just want to share with you one more example from the city of Seoul, which, similar to Singapore, has also taken up, daylighted actually, a creek. So I think it was in the 1950s, 1960s, this area was covered with concrete. It became one of the busiest roads in Seoul, which is, a huge, one of the largest cities in the world. And then in the late 90s, early 2000s, the idea to reintegrate this natural space into the city. So tearing up the concrete, getting rid of one of those roads. There's so many others that cars can use, and bringing Seoul, this beautiful natural landscape in the middle of the city, to reintegrate nature in the urban environment and visualize a creek that had been put underground. The city hall played a huge role in doing this, but also working closely with researchers in order to support this restoration. Citizens were involved and in part of the process. So here, like in the other examples, you really have to integrate the user's needs so they understand the value and that they feel part of the process, and see that maintaining old kind of gray infrastructure, concrete, can be pricey. So trying and testing new ways of investing in nature has value. Doing so, as you can see, reduced cooling achieved between 3 and 5 degrees Celsius. 400 hectares of parks were created, and a lot of fine particulate matter, air pollution was also reduced. So this is the last link I was hoping Anthony could add into the chat, and this is just some other examples from what we have been sharing from WWF side. And if your city is doing great things, we definitely want to hear from you too, because we always need more examples. The more examples we show that's happening, the reality is that we can demonstrate that this is a possibility to invest. And I also wanted to invite you to look at some of the work that our partners are doing. Maybe some of you are already involved with them. C40 Cities has the Urban Nature Declaration, which was signed by 25 cities, putting really ambitious targets on nature for climate. Then ICLE and company run something called Cities with Nature. They have a great newsletter that they also send out, and we are happy to be a part of the Cities with Nature community as well. And there your city can report on some of its nature targets. And then WRI and company are also doing something called Cities for Forest. I know that we have several colleagues calling in from Indonesia where they've been working on this topic. That's one of the countries that they're targeting on and looking at the link between cities and forests. So I know we're almost out of time, but I've also seen there's been a few hands raised. And I wanted to just see with you. So this is kind of where we are globally on this topic. And also we talked about the urgency and the value of investing in nature, the urgency in terms of these cities are growing in nature hotspots, and there are huge economic challenges if we don't get this right, but there are also great benefits, including for local jobs and life enhancing jobs if we do so correctly.